From Katu and Willamette University, this is Your Voice, Your Vote with Steve Dunn.
Welcome back. In June, Portland's new city council made history by adopting its very first budget. Went into effect on July 1st. Made a couple of key changes, including redirecting $2 million from the Portland Police Bureau to Portland Parks. It approved Mayor Keith Wilson's nearly $25 million plan to open 1,500 overnight shelter beds and 4 day centers. It also increased fees on rideshare services from 65 cents to $2 per ride to give some funding to the Portland Bureau of Transportation. Now, Portland city officials say the state's budget woes have become their own. Without these state funds, PBOT now faces an $11 million shortfall and upcoming layoffs. Katu's Steve Dunn spoke with Council President Elana Pirtle-Guiney to learn if Council could fill that shortfall themselves if state money doesn't come through. Here's a portion of that interview.
Joining me now is Council President Elana Pirtle-Guiney. She represents Portland's District 2, which includes all of North and most of Northeast Portland neighborhoods. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Nice to have you with us. How you been?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, you were elected council president early January. Now we're over halfway through the year. Is it what you thought it would be?
I don't think any of us knew exactly what it would be like with this first council, but it is predominantly what I expected. There's a lot of work making sure that we get set up, making sure that Portlanders know how this new process works, and starting to get to work now that the budget is over on some of the issues that are really pressing for our city.
You got some big stuff going on right now. Tell me about the dynamics on the city council. Is everyone working together now, or what's happening?
You know, I think it depends on the issue,
Sure.
but for the most part, there's a lot of respect between councilors. We are all trying to keep our city on track, I think I would say. There's been a lot of conversation about Portland's recovery, Portland's rebound, and everybody is really focused on how we keep our city moving and create the place we want to live in for the next 20 years.
For the most part, though, you guys are all getting along. Would you say that?
There are individual places where there are policy disagreements. There are individual places where there's tension. But for the most part, I think folks are working together well.
You folks adopted the city budget for the 25-26 fiscal year. First budget enacted under this brand new form of government. How do you feel that went?
I think we adopted a very good budget given the circumstances that we faced. We had significant cuts, not enough time to do the work, and bureaus that were used to a very different system of working through the budget. We managed to get a lot of information. We managed to get a lot of feedback. I'd like to have Portlanders weigh in earlier next time around, but we had a lot of opportunities for Portlanders to weigh in. And while there were many similarities between our budget and the mayor's proposed budget, there were some key differences where I think council made some really important decisions, like reinvesting in our park system.
And you're new, of course, and the mayor is brand new as well.
Yes.
How do you think he's doing so far?
He's doing a great job. He is good to work with. He is very focused on his goals. There's a steep learning curve for anybody new to that position, but I've really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know him.
The City Transportation Bureau is $11 million short now after the Oregon Legislature failed to pass their big transportation bill. Some of that can be recuperated through the increased tax on rideshare companies like Lyft and Uber, but that's not going to be close enough to covering the gap.
No.
Is there anything council can do to kind of squeeze this shortfall a little bit?
Well, the Bureau is looking at how they can realign some projects so that we can close the gap. We're certainly not going to be able to close it all the way, though, just with city actions, with the resources that are on the table. We are talking to folks at the state to see if they can come back in for a special session. This is something that affects not just Portland, but every local government across the state. And we are all having conversations about how we can put the pressure on to try to get action at the state level. We also are having conversations, though, about what happens if that's not successful and how we look at funding our transportation system locally if we can't rely on the state as a good partner on this work.
What would you do? Well, I mean, what would you possibly do?
Luckily, we have fantastic leadership in the Bureau and on our Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Councillor Clark, who chairs that committee, brought forward a proposal almost immediately as soon as we saw that we weren't going to be getting funding at the state level, which passed out of committee earlier this week, to direct our Bureau of Transportation to start to look at what funding mechanisms locally, what opportunities there are for funding mechanisms locally.
As you well know, without funding from the state, the Oregon Department of Transportation has already started laying off a whole bunch of folks, 400 plus at this point. They're also saying they scale back on services to Portland, including cleaning up litter, graffiti, illegal campsites. There's always some folks that are concerned about that because there's some illegal campsites along the hillsides, near 205 and near that 205 trail or what have you. Are you worried as well about the impact of this?
Certainly. Anytime there are services provided by the state or by the federal government for that matter and they pull back, we have really hard decisions to make locally. Do we backfill those? Where do we get the funding for that? It's along 205, the bike trail along 205, and also along the north side of Highway 84 in some places. And we don't have the funds to backfill that. It's certainly important work that needs to be done, though. And that's part of the conversation we'll be having. This also impacts our transit system. TriMet is going to be looking at how they close budget gaps, and it impacts our ability to do the basic work on our transportation system. We're talking about paving roads, filling potholes, minor safety upgrades, maintenance, things like that, that are all on the table for figuring out how we close that budget hole.
So, I mean, Portlanders, as they're watching this, they're obviously folks that are concerned about the fact that those campsites will not be removed at the pace that they have been lately, and also the potholes that seem to be getting deeper by the day.
Yes.
Are there concerns on your part that perhaps those won't be taken care of?
Well, we are still waiting to hear back from the Bureau about what cuts they can make. This is all new, right? This is all developing within just the last week or two. And the list right now that I'm seeing from the Bureau of Transportation locally is that they're really trying to find places where they can delay projects, extend project timelines, delay some minor safety upgrades, some maintenance work, rather than cut whole bodies of work, rather than allow camps along our roadways to grow. But those final decisions haven't been made yet.
What are your policy priorities going forward now?
So there are a couple of big things that Council is working on actually this month that are really important. The first is referring a parks levy to the ballot. The park system in Portland is funded about 50% through a levy that voters passed 5 years ago. That levy expires next year. And we need to replace it in order to continue to have parks around our city, pools that are open year-round, programs for everybody from our littlest babies up to our seniors at our community centers, and our open spaces, our natural spaces that I know Portlanders care deeply about. We are in the process actually this week of writing some of the final details for what that levy looks like, and we will be asking voters, we'll be asking all of you in November to pass this levy so that we can continue funding our park system. That's a really important piece of work. We are also going to be, I hope, passing, we'll see what the vote is, but we had a very positive debate a few weeks ago, a proposal to defer SDC's system development charges for 3 years. These are charges when you go to build something new in the city that help to fund various services. They also add a lot to costs, and we are in a housing crisis. We need to increase housing development. We need to do that as quickly as possible. So one of the proposals that has been brought forward is to waive SDC fees specifically on housing development for 3 years. I think this is actually a very important tool to say to the development community, invest in Portland, build that housing we need, and to say to Portlanders who are concerned about the lack of housing and the cost of rent in our city, we are taking a tangible action that will have a direct effect on the cost of housing over the next 3 years.
Overall, you happy with your job?
It is a real honor to get to work with Portlanders, to get to work with my community, and try to make this city a better place for all of us, try to make sure we're building the future we want here.
Thanks for coming on. You come on anytime. All right,
So
we have
good
an
to be
open door
here.
policy for you, and you know that as well. Council President Elana Pirtle-Guiney, representing Portland District 2. Appreciate your time.